Millionaire pretends to be an Uber driver to test his gold digger girlfriend and discovers something unbelievable. What started as a simple test turned into the most shocking revelation of his life, and what he did next will leave you speechless. Imagine finding out that the person you love has been lying to you for months. Ryan Mitchell, a 26-year-old millionaire, was about to discover a truth that would change his life forever. He had everything money could buy: a mansion in Beverly Hills, luxury cars, and a tech company valued at $50 million. But there was something money couldn't guarantee: knowing if his girlfriend Jessica truly loved him for who he was, or just for what he owned. It all started on a Thursday afternoon when Ryan was in his office reviewing company contracts. His best friend since college, David, walked into the room with a worried expression. "Ryan, I need to tell you something about Jessica," David said hesitantly. "Yesterday I saw her at the mall with her friends and I overheard a conversation you need to know about." Ryan's heart started racing. David took a deep breath before continuing. "She was talking about how she was going to get you to propose soon because she was tired of pretending to like the things you like." David's words echoed in Ryan's mind like a punch to the gut. Jessica, the woman he planned to marry, was just playing a role? During their 8 months together, she always seemed so genuine, so interested in his life and dreams. But now everything made sense. The strange coincidences, like how she always loved exactly the same things he did, or how she never questioned his extravagant spending. Ryan felt a mixture of anger and disappointment washing over him. That night, Ryan couldn't sleep. He lay staring at his bedroom ceiling, thinking about all the memories he had created with Jessica. Had it all been a lie? Was she really with him just for the money? He needed to find out the truth. But how? Confronting her directly wouldn't work. She would probably deny everything. That's when a crazy idea began forming in his mind. An idea that would test Jessica in a way she would never expect. Ryan got out of bed and walked to the window, watching the city lights below. He had built his empire from scratch, starting with just $1,000 and a brilliant app idea. He had always been good at reading people, understanding their true motivations. But with Jessica, his heart had clouded his judgment. Now it was time to use his intelligence to discover who she really was. The plan forming in his mind was risky, but it was the only way to know the truth. He would disguise himself, create a new identity, and see how Jessica would react when she thought he had nothing. The next morning, Ryan called in sick to work and drove to a completely different part of Los Angeles. He parked his Lamborghini 3 blocks away and walked into a thrift store in downtown. The plan was simple but brilliant. He would become someone Jessica had never met. Someone ordinary, someone poor. He bought worn jeans, old sneakers, and a faded baseball cap. Looking at himself in the fitting room mirror, he barely recognized the man staring back at him. Ryan had done his research the night before. He discovered that Jessica had been using ride-sharing apps frequently, especially when going to her yoga classes on Tuesday and Thursday evenings. She always requested the same route, always at the same time. It was perfect. He spent the entire day learning everything he could about being an Uber driver. The app, the procedures, even watched YouTube videos about how to act like someone who really needed the money. By evening, Ryan had rented an old Honda Civic and created a fake driver profile under the name Mike Johnson. He parked outside Jessica's apartment building at exactly 6:30, knowing she would request a ride to her yoga studio soon. His hands were shaking as he waited. Part of him hoped she would prove David wrong, that she would show kindness to a struggling driver. But another part of him was terrified of what he might discover. At 6:45, his phone buzzed. A ride request from Jessica Rodriguez. His girlfriend didn't even know he knew her real last name was Martinez. She had told him it was Rodriguez when they first met. Another lie. Ryan accepted the ride and drove to her building's entrance. His heart was pounding so hard he thought she might hear it. When Jessica opened the car door, she looked right at him with those beautiful brown eyes he had fallen in love with. But there was no recognition. To her, he was just another invisible service worker. "Hi, I'm going to Zen Yoga Studio on Melrose," Jessica said without even looking up from her phone. Her voice was cold, dismissive, completely different from the warm, loving tone she used with him. Ryan adjusted his baseball cap and replied in a slightly different accent, "Sure thing, miss. Should take about 15 minutes with traffic." As he started driving, he couldn't help but notice how Jessica immediately went back to texting, not even acknowledging his existence. This was already telling him something about the woman he thought he knew. The drive started quietly, with Jessica completely absorbed in her phone. Ryan glanced in the rearview mirror and saw her perfectly manicured nails typing furiously. She was texting someone, and from her facial expressions, it seemed like an important conversation. He focused on driving while listening carefully to any sounds she might make. After about 5 minutes, Jessica's phone rang. "Hey, Sarah," Jessica answered cheerfully. "Oh my God, you won't believe what happened today." Ryan's grip tightened on the steering wheel. He had never heard Jessica talk to her friend Sarah, and he was curious about what she considered unbelievable. "Ryan bought me this incredible necklace from Tiffany's. It must have cost at least $10,000, she laughed. "I swear, this guy just throws money around like it's nothing." Ryan felt his stomach drop. The necklace he had given her just 2 days ago as a surprise, just because gift. He had thought she was genuinely moved to tears when he gave it to her. She had told him it was the most thoughtful gift anyone had ever given her. But now, talking to her friend, it was just another expensive item to brag about. I know, Jessica continued. "But honestly, Sarah, I'm getting tired of pretending to be this perfect girlfriend. Do you know how exhausting it is to act interested in all his boring tech talk? And don't even get me started on his stupid charity events. But hey, the man's loaded, and he's totally obsessed with me." Ryan's hands were trembling now. Every word was like a knife to his heart. Jessica's voice dropped to a whisper, but in the quiet car, Ryan could still hear everything. "Between you and me, I'm planning to push for an engagement soon. His friend David keeps giving me weird looks like he suspects something. I need to lock this down before Ryan figures out I'm not the innocent girl from a small town that I pretended to be." She paused. "Once we're married, I'll have access to everything. Then I can stop pretending to be someone I'm not." Ryan's entire world was crashing down around him. Every sweet moment, every "I love you," every intimate conversation had been carefully calculated lies. He wanted to pull over and confront her right there, but he forced himself to keep driving. He needed to hear more. He needed to understand just how deep this deception went. "You should see his house, Sarah," Jessica continued, not caring that a stranger was listening. "It's like something from MTV Cribs. The guy has a wine cellar worth more than most people make in a year. And he's so clueless about everything. He actually thinks I grew up poor, and that's why I'm so grateful for everything he does." She laughed cruelly. "If he only knew I grew up in Malibu and my dad owns 3 restaurants. Wait." Ryan's mind was racing. Jessica had told him she grew up in a small town in Ohio, that her father was a factory worker who died when she was 16. She had cried telling him this story. He had held her, comforted her, even donated $50,000 to a scholarship fund for kids who lost parents, all because of her fake sob story. The level of manipulation was staggering. If you're feeling as shocked as Ryan right now, hit that like button because this story is about to get even crazier. And before I reveal what Ryan decides to do next, write in the comments. What would you do if you discovered someone was lying about their entire life to get your money? Would you confront them immediately, or keep investigating like Ryan? "The funniest part," Jessica went on, "is that he thinks he's so smart because he built this tech company, but he's absolutely clueless when it comes to people. I've been studying him for months, learning exactly what type of woman he wants and then becoming that person. It's like acting, but the payoff is way better than any movie role." She paused to check her makeup in her phone camera. "He's probably at home right now planning some romantic surprise for me, thinking he's the luckiest guy in the world." Ryan realized that Jessica was absolutely right about one thing. He had been completely clueless, but not anymore. As he pulled up to the yoga studio, a new plan was forming in his mind. If Jessica wanted to play games, he would show her what a real player looked like. The scared, heartbroken Ryan was disappearing, replaced by the strategic businessman who had built an empire. Game on. "Here we are, miss," Ryan said as he stopped in front of the yoga studio. Jessica didn't even look up from her phone as she opened the door. "Thanks," she said dismissively, not bothering with a tip or even a simple goodbye. As Ryan watched her walk into the building, her designer yoga outfit probably costing more than most people's monthly rent, he realized he was looking at a complete stranger. The drive back to return the rental car gave Ryan time to process everything he had heard. Jessica hadn't just lied about loving him, she had constructed an entirely false identity. Every story about her past, every tear she had shed, every moment of vulnerability she had shared was all part of an elaborate con. He thought about all the times she had seemed so genuine, so perfect. Now he understood why. She had been studying him, learning his preferences, becoming his ideal woman. But Ryan wasn't just hurt anymore. He was angry. And when Ryan Mitchell got angry, he got strategic. By the time he reached the car rental place, he had already decided on his next move. If Jessica thought she was going to manipulate him into marriage and steal his fortune, she was about to learn that she had picked the wrong target. That evening, Ryan sat in his home office, surrounded by the success he had built through hard work and genuine relationships. He looked at the photo of him and Jessica on his desk. Her smiling face now looked sinister to him. How many other wealthy men had she targeted? How long had she been planning this con? He opened his laptop and started researching everything he could find about Jessica Martinez. What he discovered over the next 3 hours made his blood run cold. Jessica had a history. She had dated 2 other wealthy men in the past 3 years. Both relationships had lasted about a year. Both had ended with the men claiming she had stolen money from them, but neither had been able to prove it. One man, a real estate developer named Marcus, had even filed a police report claiming Jessica had forged his signature on several checks, but the case was dropped due to lack of evidence. Ryan realized he wasn't Jessica's first victim. He was just her biggest target. The tech empire he had built was worth more than her previous boyfriend's wealth combined. She hadn't just stumbled into his life by chance. She had chosen him, studied him, and executed a perfect plan. But she had made one crucial mistake. She had underestimated exactly how intelligent and resourceful Ryan really was. The next morning, Ryan called his lawyer, Thomas Anderson, whom he had known since college. "Thomas, I need you to do something for me, and I need complete confidentiality," Ryan said. "I want you to hire a private investigator to research someone named Jessica Martinez, also known as Jessica Rodriguez. I need to know everything. Her real background, her financial history, her previous relationships, everything." Within 48 hours, Thomas called back with information that confirmed Ryan's worst fears. "Ryan, you need to sit down for this," Thomas said seriously. "Jessica Martinez is part of a sophisticated romance scam operation. She targets wealthy tech entrepreneurs specifically. She's worked with a team that includes a fake best friend who provides references, fake social media accounts that go back years, and even staged scenarios to make her seem more believable. Tell me in the comments, have you ever felt like someone was too good to be true? Because Ryan's about to find out just how deep this rabbit hole goes." The private investigator had discovered that Jessica's small-town girl story was completely fabricated. Her real father wasn't a dead factory worker. He was alive and well, living in a mansion in Malibu after selling his restaurant chain for $15 million. Jessica had graduated from USC with a degree in theater arts, specializing in method acting. She had turned her acting skills into a criminal enterprise. "There's more," Thomas continued. "The investigator found evidence that Jessica has been secretly recording conversations with you, probably to study your responses and perfect her manipulation techniques. She's also been photographing your house, your cars, and documenting your daily routines. Ryan, this isn't just about money. She's been planning to take everything you have." Ryan felt sick to his stomach. The woman he had opened his heart to, the woman he had trusted with his deepest secrets and fears, was essentially a professional criminal. But the businessman in him was also impressed by the sophistication of the operation. This wasn't some desperate person making bad choices. This was a calculated predator who had turned emotional manipulation into an art form. "What are my options?" Ryan asked Thomas. "Legally, it's complicated," his lawyer replied. "She hasn't actually stolen anything yet, and proving emotional manipulation in court is nearly impossible. But the good news is that now we know what she's planning. We can protect your assets and potentially catch her in the act." That's when Ryan made a decision that would change everything. Instead of just protecting himself, he was going to turn the tables completely. If Jessica wanted to play the long game, he would show her what a real strategic mind could do. He wasn't just going to stop her from stealing his money. He was going to make sure she never victimized anyone else again. Ryan spent the weekend creating the most elaborate counterplan he had ever devised. He would continue to pretend he knew nothing, but now he would be the one manipulating the situation. He would feed Jessica false information about his wealth, create fake business deals, and document everything she did in response. By the time he was done, he would have enough evidence to not only protect himself, but to send Jessica to prison. But first, He had one more test for her. He wanted to see just how far she would go, how low she would sink. Ryan picked up his phone and called Jessica. "Hey, beautiful," he said, forcing warmth into his voice. "I have some incredible news to share with you. Can you come over tonight? I want to celebrate with the woman I love." On the other end of the line, Jessica's excited response made him feel sick. She had no idea that her perfect victim was about to become her worst nightmare. That evening, Jessica arrived at Ryan's house looking absolutely stunning. She wore the red dress he had once mentioned was his favorite color, and her smile was so convincing that for a moment, Ryan almost doubted what he had discovered. Almost. "You look amazing," he said, kissing her cheek. "I've been thinking about you all day." It took every ounce of self-control not to ask her about her conversation in the Uber. "So what's this big news?" Jessica asked, settling onto his expensive Italian leather couch. Her eyes were bright with anticipation, and Ryan realized she was probably hoping he was about to propose. Instead, he was about to test just how greedy she really was. "Well," Ryan said, pouring 2 glasses of champagne, "I just signed the biggest deal of my life. A tech giant wants to buy my company." Jessica's face lit up like Christmas morning. "Oh my God, Ryan, that's incredible," she exclaimed, jumping up to hug him. "How much are they offering?" The question came out so quickly that she couldn't hide her excitement about the money. Ryan pretended not to notice her eagerness. $250 million, he said, watching her reaction carefully. "If you think Jessica's about to show her true colors, you're absolutely right. Drop a like in this video if you're ready to see this con artist get what she deserves." Jessica actually gasped and put her hand over her heart. $250 million? She repeated, and Ryan could practically see dollar signs in her eyes. "Ryan, that's life-changing money. We could do anything, go anywhere, buy anything we want." The way she said "we" made Ryan's skin crawl. There was no "we" in this situation. There was just Jessica planning to take everything he had worked for. "I know it's crazy," Ryan continued, playing his part perfectly. "But there's one condition. They want me to sign the papers next Friday, and they need to meet my fiancé first. They're very traditional, and they want to make sure I'm settled down with someone they approve of." He paused dramatically. "Jessica, I know this is sudden, but would you marry me?" The proposal was perfect bait, and Jessica took it completely. Tears filled her eyes, real tears, but Ryan now knew they were tears of greed, not love. "Yes," she screamed, throwing her arms around him. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." As she held him, Ryan felt absolutely nothing except disgust. The woman he had fallen in love with had never really existed. Over the next few days, Jessica's behavior became even more revealing. She immediately started talking about wedding plans, honeymoon destinations, and how they should invest the money from the sale. She suggested they buy a bigger house, multiple vacation homes, and even a yacht. Every conversation somehow circled back to the money and how they would spend it together. What Jessica didn't know was that Ryan's security system had been recording everything. Every greedy comment, every manipulation, every fake tear was being documented. He had also started feeding her false information about his bank accounts, investments, and business connections, and she eagerly absorbed every detail. Before I tell you about Ryan's master plan, let me ask you this. Do you think Jessica deserves what's coming to her? Or should Ryan just walk away? Leave your opinion in the comments. Meanwhile, Ryan had his lawyer create fake documents about the company sale, fake contracts, and even fake emails from the supposed buyers. Jessica studied everything he left carelessly around the house, just as he had planned. She was even taking photos of important documents when she thought he wasn't looking. The private investigator had installed hidden cameras that captured her every move. By Thursday evening, Ryan had enough evidence to bury Jessica legally, but he wasn't done yet. He wanted her to experience the same shock and betrayal that she had put him through. He wanted her to understand what it felt like to discover that someone you trusted was your enemy. The final phase of his plan would happen the next day, and it would be absolutely devastating. Friday morning arrived, and Jessica was practically glowing with excitement. She had spent a fortune on a new outfit for meeting the buyers, money she had somehow managed to acquire despite supposedly being broke. Ryan suspected she had been using credit cards she planned to pay off with his money after they got married. The level of calculation was mind-blowing. "Are you nervous about today?" Jessica asked as they drove to the supposed meeting location. Actually, Thomas's law office, where Ryan had arranged for everything to come to an end. A little, Ryan replied honestly. He was nervous, but not about the fake deal. He was nervous about confronting the woman who had deceived him so completely. When they arrived at the law office, Thomas was waiting with two other men, Detective Rodriguez from the Financial Crimes Unit and Agent Martinez from the FBI White-Collar Crime Division. Jessica didn't recognize them as law enforcement, thinking they were the buyers. "Gentlemen," Ryan said formally, "I'd like you to meet my fiancée, Jessica Rodriguez." The irony of using her fake last name wasn't lost on him. "Actually," Detective Rodriguez said, pulling out his badge, "we'd like to meet Jessica Martinez." The color drained from Jessica's face so quickly that Ryan thought she might faint. "I'm sorry, I think there's been some mistake," she stammered. "My name is Jessica Rodriguez." But Agent Martinez was already pulling out a folder full of evidence. "Ms. Martinez," Agent Martinez said calmly, "we have evidence of fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit grand theft. You're under arrest." As the handcuffs clicked around Jessica's wrists, she looked at Ryan with pure hatred in her eyes. "You set me up," she screamed. "You lying piece of garbage. You made me think you loved me." The irony of Jessica calling him a liar was almost funny. "Almost. I made you think I loved you?" Ryan said quietly. "Jessica, everything about you is a lie. Your name, your background, your feelings, everything. At least my love was real until I discovered who you really are." The FBI agent was reading Jessica her rights, but she kept staring at Ryan as if she couldn't believe he had outsmarted her. "How long have you known?" Jessica asked, her voice now cold and calculating. The fake tears and innocent act had completely disappeared, revealing the predator underneath. "Long enough," Ryan replied. "Long enough to document everything you've done, every lie you've told, every crime you've committed. You picked the wrong target, Jessica." As the officers led Jessica away, she turned back one more time. "You have no idea who you're messing with," she said threateningly. "This isn't over." But Ryan knew it was over. The FBI had been tracking Jessica's operation for months, and Ryan's evidence had given them everything they needed to shut down her entire network. Thomas handed Ryan a thick folder. "It's all here," he said. "Bank records showing she was never poor, evidence of her previous victims, recordings of her planning to steal your assets, everything. She's looking at 10 to 15 years in federal prison." Ryan nodded, feeling a strange mixture of relief and sadness. Relief that he had discovered the truth before it was too late, and sadness that the woman he had loved never really existed. That evening, Ryan sat alone in his house, looking at all the places Jessica had touched, all the memories that were now tainted with lies. He removed every photo of them together, every gift she had given him, every trace of her existence in his life. It would take time to heal from this betrayal, but he was grateful he had learned the truth before making the biggest mistake of his life. Over the next few weeks, the investigation revealed the full scope of Jessica's crimes. She had stolen over $2 million from previous victims, ruined the credit of at least 6 men, and caused one victim to attempt suicide when he lost everything. Her best friend Sarah was actually her partner in crime, helping to create believable backstories and fake references. Even the yoga studio where Ryan had dropped her off was part of the scam. They used it as a meeting place to plan their next targets. The FBI discovered that Jessica's team had been watching Ryan for 6 months before she accidentally bumped into him at that coffee shop where they first met. They had studied his social media, his business interviews, even his charitable donations to create the perfect persona to attract him. She had literally been paid to become his dream woman. Ryan testified at Jessica's trial, and seeing her in the orange jumpsuit was surreal. She showed no remorse, no acknowledgement of the pain she had caused. When the judge sentenced her to 12 years in federal prison, she stared at Ryan with cold hatred, but he felt nothing for her anymore. She was a stranger who had worn the face of someone he loved. The hardest part wasn't losing Jessica. It was losing his ability to trust. Ryan found himself questioning every new person he met, wondering if they had ulterior motives. Dating became impossible because he was constantly looking for signs of deception. The woman who had promised to love him forever had stolen more than just his money. She had stolen his faith in love itself. But slowly, with the help of therapy and the support of real friends like David, Ryan began to heal. He realized that Jessica's betrayal said nothing about his worth as a person and everything about her character. He had been a victim, but he refused to remain one. The experience had taught him valuable lessons about protecting himself while still remaining open to genuine connections. 6 months after Jessica's conviction, Ryan was finally beginning to feel like himself again. He had implemented new security measures for his business and personal life, but more importantly, he had learned to trust his instincts. Looking back, there had been small signs that something was off about Jessica, but his desire to believe in their love had made him ignore those red flags. The experience had also made Ryan more compassionate toward other victims of romance scams. He started a foundation to help people who had been financially and emotionally devastated by similar crimes. Through his foundation, he met dozens of people who had been targeted by professional con artists, and he realized that intelligence and success were no protection against skilled manipulators. One day, while volunteering at a workshop for scam victims, Ryan met someone who would change his perspective completely. Dr. Sarah Chen was a psychologist who specialized in helping people recover from financial fraud. She was brilliant, funny, and most importantly, completely genuine. Their friendship developed slowly and naturally, without the artificial perfection that had characterized his relationship with Jessica. Sarah had her own story of heartbreak, not from a romance scam, but from a divorce where her ex-husband had hidden assets and left her financially devastated. She understood the difficulty of learning to trust again after betrayal. Their shared experiences created a bond that was built on honesty and mutual respect, rather than fantasy and manipulation. What Ryan appreciated most about Sarah was that she challenged him to grow rather than simply telling him what he wanted to hear. She called him out when he was being overly suspicious of people, but she also validated his need to be cautious. With her help, he began to understand the difference between healthy skepticism and destructive paranoia. A year later, Ryan and Sarah were sitting in the same coffee shop where he had first met Jessica. But this time, everything was different. There were no carefully planned coincidences, no fake stories about difficult childhoods, no manipulation tactics. Just two people who had been through difficult experiences and found comfort in each other's honesty. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't discovered Jessica's plan?" Sarah asked, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. Ryan considered the question seriously. "I think she would have destroyed me completely," he admitted. "Not just financially, but emotionally. I would have married her, given her access to everything, and then probably ended up like her other victims, broken, and unable to trust anyone ever again." The irony wasn't lost on Ryan that his decision to test Jessica by disguising himself as an Uber driver had saved his life. If he had never overheard that phone conversation, he might have proposed to her that very week. He would have handed over his fortune to someone who saw him as nothing more than a target. The thought still made him feel sick. "But you know what the strangest part is?" Ryan continued. "I'm almost grateful it happened. Not for the pain, but for what it taught me. I learned that real love doesn't require you to be perfect or pretend to be someone you're not. Real love accepts your flaws and challenges you to be better. Not because they want something from you, but because they care about your happiness." Sarah smiled and reached across the table to take his hand. "That's a beautiful way to look at it," she said. "And for what it's worth, I think Jessica's loss was ultimately everyone else's gain. Her victims got justice, you learned valuable lessons about yourself, and the world is a little bit safer with her behind bars." As they walked out of the coffee shop together, Ryan reflected on how much his life had changed. He was still successful, still wealthy, still the same person who had built a tech empire from nothing. But now he was also wiser, more careful, and more appreciative of genuine relationships. Jessica had tried to destroy him, but instead, she had made him stronger. The story of Ryan and Jessica serves as a powerful reminder that in our digital age, romance scams have become incredibly sophisticated. Professional con artists like Jessica study their targets for months, creating elaborate false identities designed to exploit specific vulnerabilities. They prey on successful people's desire for love and connection, turning those beautiful human needs into weapons. Ryan's decision to disguise himself as an Uber driver might seem extreme, but it probably saved him from losing everything he had worked for. More importantly, it saved him from a lifetime of emotional trauma. By discovering Jessica's true nature before marriage, he avoided the devastating experience of her other victims, who lost not just their money, but their ability to trust and love again. The most important lesson from this story isn't about money or business. It's about the value of authentic relationships. Jessica offered Ryan a fantasy version of love, where everything was perfect and effortless. But real love, like what he eventually found with Sarah, requires work, honesty, and mutual respect. It's not about finding someone who tells you exactly what you want to hear, but about finding someone who cares enough to tell you the truth. If you've made it this far in the story, you probably have strong feelings about what happened. Let me know in the comments, do you think Ryan's punishment of Jessica was justified, or should he have handled it differently? Have you ever encountered someone who seemed too good to be true? Your experiences could help other people recognize the warning signs. Don't forget to hit that like button if this story opened your eyes to the reality of modern romance scams, and subscribe to the channel for more incredible true stories that will shock you. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. You might just save them from becoming the next victim. Until next time, remember that the best relationships are built on truth, not fantasy.